How's it going, guys? My name is Darren, and while I am enjoying Legion, I still cannot wait for BFA to finally come out. The more information we hear about BFA, the happier I will be, and it seems like Blizzard did reveal some information already, which might be possible. The 30th might be a specific special date, no guarantee, but it still could be. So in today's video, I want to take a look at Blizzard's free announcements as well as the class methodology they're going to be applying in BFA. Kind of just break down what they did in a blue post that you can read on Wowhead and WoW Champion, or really wherever it may be available on. But before I go on to class methodology, they did release Battle for Azeroth Collector's Edition rewards, which includes a Sea Braid Stallion, a Kil'Taras style or horse, which makes me think we have so many horses in the game as is. I guess it's nice to get a revamp of a new horse, but maybe too many horses already. But also a Gilded Ravelsaur. So this one is the Zandalari Raptor style mount, and this one would be pretty cool because I don't see too many Raptor mounts either. And we also get a total. Yes, a total. I'm not 5, and I'm not just trying to pronounce turtle, and I can't say my R's. It actually is just called a total. Collector's Edition total. I'm not a pet kind of guy, but that thing looks kind of cute. Now, to get to the class methodology, which kind of tells us how Blizzard is going to be doing the class approach in BFA, which I think is a good approach, but let's first get on to the main points, and I'll talk about what I like about it and what I don't. I'll probably talk about and give my own thoughts and processes as I go on. So what are the expectations and goals for BFA in terms of classes? Blizzard wants to focus on class uniqueness, and this says class instead of a spec, meaning it's going to be all about what class you play. They want to focus more about group gameplay and how group gameplay can benefit one another. I'm guessing group gameplay into dungeons, raids, arenas, I guess any kind of group content that we might have. They want to improve combat, visuals, and effects as well. So that's going to be nice to have some classes get new animations like Warlocks, who got no new casting animations where just about every other caster did. I mean, that's kind of nice if you play a Warlock. Not really. They also are talking about class uniqueness and utility, and this is kind of where they get a bit more in depth of how they're looking at the class versus spec type of combo. They want to limit similarity of some of the CC, for example, AoE stuns. I feel like every time I go into a Mythic Plus, there's at least 1 or 2 classes, or even 3, that can combo together and AoE stun into another. Blizzard wants to make those stuns a little bit more valuable. They want to give some moments where players have to use these stuns in order to help themselves in a moment by, let's say, pruning out of some classes. I don't want to see an overall prune, but to make this ability more valuable, shorter duration and such, would make it a lot more valuable in a dungeon, because then you just can't throw it around willy-nilly on every single pack of mobs and then combo them together back to back to back. Some classes having AoE stuns and bringing that to a team is nice, but they want to make it more important, more unique, as well as the other CC like Fears and Polymorphs, which I think are seldom in Mythic Plus. To highlight further how they're separating specialization and class in terms of what they're going to be doing and how they view the specializations and class for BFA. Specializations are meant to have different role differences. So say just DPS roles. Some DPS will be bursty, like just really upfront burst, but maybe longer cooldowns. Others will be better at long fights, where the longer the fight lasts, the better it is, so it will be a battle of attrition. And anything in between. They want to separate how tanks are against one another, how healers are against one another, how DPS are against one another. But that's as far as role specialization is gonna be for specs. The specs are gonna be different in terms of how the role based they are, what the role is. While utilities are gonna be something that is still class based. So for example, from what I understand, again, this is from what I understand, when you're playing a hunter, you get to choose what spec you want to play. Marksman, Beastmaster, or Survival, and let's say Survival just sings to you. When you join the group, people don't look at you and judge you because you play Survival. They look at you and say, we're bringing a hunter. So they get a hunter, and you get to play the spec you want to play and the playstyle you want to play, which I think is a great way to put it, and it's a win-win situation. As long as that is what Blizzard means, which I'm trying to read between the lines, but maybe I'm just reading into where there's nothing. Blizzard also touched upon talent systems, and they said that the system of talents in terms of how they're pairing each other and some of the talents is largely unchanged. If it's a question of are talents different, do we get different talents, then the answer is yes, because we saw Blizzard adding in a lot more new talents into the game. But in terms of how they structure the talents and how they pin them against one another to give you a choice of how you want to customize your character, that system is for the most part going to stay. But they do want to improve on it. They said they want more meaningful choices of talents rather than choosing a talent in a row that is best for the current situation. As somebody who plays one of the specializations who basically has a talent point or a talent in the row that is just the best for any fight, the fact that I don't ever have to change my talents, no matter if it's an AoE or a single target, it just doesn't feel as satisfying. It just feels like I have a static build and there's not a lot of room for me to play around. There's not a lot of wiggle room. I feel like I'm locked into a specific build, and for Blizzard to go around and change it so it's more of a personal preference, while it's about trying to customize how you want to play instead of what is the best for the situation, I actually support that idea. I don't know how they will do it, but I support the idea. They also talked a bit about how they want to make talents about less about like AoE versus single target options. So let's say you're having a boss fight and it's all single target, just to find the boss. A lot of your talents are AoE, single target, or single target. AoE, single target, or AoE. If it's all single target, you'll simply just make a choice of all the talents that are best for single target. If it's AoE heavy, like you'll just need a lot of AoE, you'll just choose all of your AoE. If you have a cleave with a little bit of single target, you'll kind of just do a bit of half and half. Blizzard wants to eliminate that as much as possible and rather make talents more competitive. AoE are versing AoE, single target are versing single target, and utility is versing utility. Which sounds really, really good, and also overall sounds from the blue post that they want to make them less specific and rather general. Talents that are generally good for just about any situation, instead of specific talents. And again, as an Outlaw Rogue player, there's some dead talents that have specific uses in specific situations, but they're so rare to where you can basically just take the best in slot talent and just roll with it and never really change it. Because if you allow talents to be more general, it gives a little bit more breathing room and options to the player to actually have choice. Which is something that we lost ever since we lost, let's be honest, talents back from Cataclysm, Wrath of Lich King. There's a lot more choice, it felt like, back then, because you could really customize how you wanted to play. And with the new talents, Blizzard, I feel like, needs to put a little bit more effort in order to make him feel like there's actual choice. Which I would be super happy if there was actual choice. They also talked about resource generating talents and how they want to make them competitive against one another. Resource generating talents can be anything from, on a rogue, a talent that allows you to generate more energy and maybe even have an increased common point cap. Or if you're a Death Knight, that regulates how many runic power you generate. Or if you're a warrior, the rate at which you generate your rage. Any of those talents that talk about your resource generation should be more competitive and set a pace for the game. Some of these talents can set a faster pace but be, let's say, less effective. Others might be, let's say, slower and be a lot more effective but harder to line up. So it gives, again, more player choice. If you want to play a class, and let's say a lot of people said, I want to be able to play an Outlaw Rogue, but I feel like I'm always energy starved. I want to be able to spam more abilities. What if there was a talent option where you can spam more abilities, but those abilities are effectively weaker? So you can have this Frost DK style where you're always pressing a button, but you have to basically keep that train rolling or you lose a lot of damage. I feel like, again, Blizzard says a lot of good things about this so far, and so far I'm really happy. I actually think resource generating and allowing players to play around with it, we don't know how much of a options it will give us, but I'm just kind of banking for the best possible solution and the one that will make me probably the happiest. Of course, I'm probably going to get myself set up for a disappointment, but it's nice that Blizzard is at least talking about stuff like this. We don't know how it'll be in application, but I like that they're talking about stuff like this. Finally, artifact weapons. They even touched on those. Artifacts are gone, but not really. Artifacts are too heavily involved in the class system right now, and having artifacts removed slows down a lot of the gameplay, at least what they said. And I can only imagine playing your class and all of a sudden you lost your artifact weapon. That means you lost your active ability and a plethora of passive abilities. Because artifact weapons are so heavily ingrained into how we're playing right now in Legion, to go into the next expansion will be an insane prune of a ton of passives and a 1 or maybe even 2 active abilities from a lot of the classes. And Blizzard is trying to figure out how to turn it around, and they're adding some of these passive and active effects into BFA. That said that some of these could become baseline if a certain class, let's say, needs it. Like they need a certain passive in order to even be viable, because these passives have altered the class in some great ways where a lot of people would be happy would miss these talents. For example, like the Hades pet, the extra pet the Beast Mastery Hunters get. I don't know how Blizzard is going to go into the future of it all, but if you played Beastmaster in the past, you're used to the fact that you have 2 pets instead of 1. To be able to go into BFA with 1 pet missing would feel a little bit weird, and I feel like it almost shaped how the specialization ended up being. The class fantasy is shaped by the weapon, because without that weapon, you lose that extra pet. So I'm kind of hoping that they get to keep their second pet. It's not only aesthetical, it's also playstyle. The pet also deals damage, and it works off of your different procs, and having a second pet makes you a little bit different from the other specializations of hunters that already have pets. I feel it's just one of these things that is going to be probably a nightmare to balance out. But I'm hoping Blizzard kind of sticks to their guns with it. And the artifact talents are supposedly going to be competitive. Like, let's say they're adding the Retribution Paladin artifact talent into the talents bar, as well as the mage. They add in your artifact weapon ability as part of the talents, but now you have to choose between your artifact power ability and your previous talents, and you're trying to kind of find a competitive middle ground between one and the other. Do you really need that artifact extra trait because it's so nice? Because for mages, to have that insta cast Phoenix Flames was super nice because of the crit proc, but now it might eat away into one of the talents used in the past. And again, in the long run, because they're basically having to change up talents and a lot of abilities, overall I'm hoping the Blizzard does not do any kind of prune in the game. And they did say that they want to bring back a lot of the old school class abilities, maybe passives, maybe active abilities that people used to have back in the day. So maybe there's a possibility that other specs of rogues just might get their poisons back, but very, very unlikely, although I am still having my hopes up about it. So a lot of good things are coming in. Blizzard seems to be putting a lot of good things on paper. So if you were to take this as 100% truth, and then BFA is looking like a great expansion in terms of class balancing and specialization, how they kind of balance those things each other against one another in terms of gameplay. But then again, we've seen Blizzard talk about good things, like there have been a lot of ideas that are great on paper, but in terms of implementation, that just didn't quite work out. So we're hoping for the best here, but we'll see what Blizzard ends up doing in the end of it all. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully it gave you guys a little bit of insight of classes in BFA. Do you have a class that you would want Blizzard to change in BFA? Maybe give abilities back or keep some of the stuff you already have right now? Be sure to leave that in the comments below. I'd like to read some of those. For rogues in particular, when it comes to Outlaw, there's not a lot that I can really think of that could be kept. I think a lot of Outlaw rogues would say as long as they switch around roll the bones and slice and dice and buff slice and dice, then a lot of players would be happy. You know what, at this point, even if they were to do that, if they made roll the bones somehow stronger and made it a talent, I wouldn't even have an issue with it. It would be kind of weird to play my spec without my artifact weapon ability because I thought it was so unique to the specialization. It gave a little bit of uniqueness in terms of just insane amount of combo point generation. But I guess we'll see in the future what the spec ends up doing. Thank you guys all again so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and give it a like. Likes allow my videos to reach a wider audience, so it would help my channel grow, and that would be very, very much appreciated. If you guys enjoy these kind of discussions, these kind of updates on BFA, Firefall, and Windows, be sure to go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to catch the live streams, which we do every single day, except for today, because today is Thursday and my day off, then go ahead and hit the notification bell down below next to the sub button. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'm loving how there's more stuff coming out about BFA, and I'm always happy and ready to cover it. So hopefully you guys are just as excited as I am. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see all of you guys in another video.